This city is dying, and we're going to try to prevent that death and make it come alive again.
It's live. It's live in a very subtle way. When the land in the Central Ward is worth $250,000 an acre, ain't no way you're dead.
And I didn't go to stay, but my soul got happy and I stayed all day. I wanna be, oh, I gotta be, yeah. Oh, to walk. 6 white horses side by side. Swing low, speed chariot, and please let me ride. I want to be, oh, I've gotta be, oh, to walk.
When they blew up the projects, or some of them, I felt good and relieved that these buildings won't be there anymore, so I wouldn't have to watch them every time I drove down the street or drove down Springfield Avenue. I wouldn't have to watch these buildings and remember what happened, you know, to my family. My mother had 11 children. We all lived in the project. My mother was killed in the 1967 riots. She was shot twice. From what I understand, she was closing the window, and they shot her. They thought that she was a sniper, and they shot her. The way the sofa was set up in the living room, you know, the sofa was by the window, and of course she fell back on the sofa. You know.
You saw that?
Yeah, I saw that. I can remember that. I remember all the blood. I remember you can take the pillow and the couch and just do like this to it, and the blood would all come out. I remember that.
The police rioted. The police rioted. And they just went at random and started shooting people. And Mrs. Spellman was an example of that. I believe she went to the window to look out. She heard what was going on downstairs. The police were shooting at snipers, they claim. No one ever found any snipers. And she got caught. She got shot. That particular situation sparked a lot of reaction in the community. There were attempts made to help that particular family because it was such a glaring example of somebody who should not have been killed. She was a female, she was in her home, she had a lot of children, she was on welfare. I mean, it was a kind of a prototypical story that folks could relate to. It was not a man who was coming out of a store looting with a bottle of beer in his hand and got shot down by the police.
We lost several lives, 26, I think, 25. Mostly innocent people caught in the crossfire. I got a call about 2 a.m. I was in Morven. I was governor then, 1967, from Mayor Adonisio, and he was hysterical. And he said the city was burning down. So I activated the state police and I activated the National Guard, and I guess I was up here in about 2 hours and stayed about 6 days.
Those involved are criminals, in my judgment, and I hope these criminals will be prosecuted. I think it's time that the American people, I think they're pretty tired of this cloak of civil rights activity shielding this criminal activity. I'm signing an emergency declaration to designate this as a disaster area and to invoke powers given me by the Constitution and laws of New Jersey, such as to prevent the movement of vehicular traffic at certain times and under certain conditions in certain parts of this city.
Do you think you had any choice?
No, I don't think so. I could have walked the other side. You know, any governor can walk on the other side of the street and let things go to hell, and he's popular. Nobody's mad at him. But I felt it my duty, and I've never looked back on it with any regrets.
I heard all the excuses of why, but I heard no answers. Nobody came up with a solution to say this will never happen again, or just compensation. I mean, they're now compensating the Chinese and Japanese, what is it, World War II? And no one has ever talked about compensating the families who were in their own homes, who didn't bother anyone, and who went through hell.
The force of what was really going on throughout the entire country had made the situation at that point uncontrollable. On a local level, and in the sense of their own community, there was the issue of the medical school location, the siting of the medical school in the city that was going to lead to the displacement of something like 10% of the entire population of the city. And there were a whole series of issues about race and poverty and police mistreatment in the city. It was a very serious problem.
I got my head split open, my teeth knocked out, got sentenced to 3 years in prison with no parole. Yeah, that was unpleasant at the time. Here in Newark, there was apartheid, generally, until those rebellions. It was those rebellions that was the force, the violent force to end apartheid, American apartheid. You see?
It worked then?
Sure, it worked. And in terms of those rebellions, people trying to make them seem peculiar or odd, black people have burnt down New York City since the 18th century. They've burnt down New York City, what, 1712, 1741. They've had rebellions in 1943, 1945 in New York City. They burnt down New Orleans 3 or 4 times. They burnt down Mobile. The point is, where there is oppression, there's resistance. And as long as the society is unjust and inequitable, you will have resistance, and much of it will be violent.
This can be classified certainly as partly a civil rights demonstration, but I think it emulates from individuals in the community who are more concerned about themselves, perhaps, than they are concerned about doing something in relationship to civil rights.
In addition to force, what other methods are you trying to employ?
Under certain conditions, with proper identification, such as armbands, we have a substantial number of clergymen that are willing to go out in the street and talk to the people.
I was one of the good guys, I suppose, in the community. I had an armband. I went through the street saying, don't riot, etc. Then I began thinking that maybe there is a reason. Maybe the people here have a reason for rioting. The stores up and down Springfield Avenue that serve this community. As I recall, many of those stores were overcharging people. None of them were owned by minorities. The only time that people saw white people in the community were either the policemen, the bill collectors. There was nobody in positions of authority and whatnot. Therefore, the young people who were growing up here, I'm sure just felt there was no hope for them. After I began thinking about it, I took the band off. Why should I be out risking my life, telling people to stop rioting?
President Johnson said that we're going to give aid to black people's enemies, which would happen to be the mayor, the governor.
Do you think the cry of black power might have added a little fuel to this? Undoubtedly.
We are interested in developing in our community the type of peoplehood that, makes black power envelop that entire black community. And we're not concerned about that white community at all. You see, when I talk about the rebellion, first of all, violence was brought into that black community. Black people did not become violent until the racist, honky cops came down up in there with all their arms, and then black people began to defend themselves.
20 years ago, the neighborhood that I live in, we call it the North Ward, specifically up here it's Forest Hill, which is a part of the North Ward. We felt very special and apart from the city, and I think it's still the same. We still do. If it's more or less, I think it's really not important. We're really not connected.
Did the riot take this neighborhood by surprise?
Totally. We had to rethink who we were. Are we going to stay here? Tomorrow, are we going to leave? Are we crazy? What are we doing here? I mean, are we in a war? I mean, if we get out into suburbia, guess what? It's over. There's no war, no fighting, no racism, no problem. No blacks, no baraccas, none of that. Very critical time to rethink of who we were. Something was happening that was impacting on our lives, and it was scary.
What were the fears?
Everything. Everything. You know, your way of life ending, like by the weekend. You know, waking up to find out that all the things that you loved and cherished and protected, they're not going to be there. And if they're there, you may not recognize them. It was frightening for everybody.
I remember all the scuffle and the people in my house. I remember running back and forth in the hallway. The state trooper saying, don't go over there, you have to go to over there in that corner. No, put him in the closet over there. And I remember us running back and forth, in and out of the apartment, on the floors. That's what I remember.
You knew your mother had been killed?
I didn't know. I knew that my mother was shot and that it was bad.
The reason why I can remember Spelman so vividly is because there's so many children involved, and you feel remorse because you really want to know what has happened to those kids now. Now, no, they have to be adults, but how did that shake their foundation? You know, what kind of life are they leading, you know?
None of us can really get over the fact that my mother was killed that way. Because you all wish that you had a mother. Would I have had 2 children if my mother had been here? That's what I think about. You know, would you have had 2 children if you had somebody that you can go to and talk to about it? I said, God, you know, I'm only 27 years old and I'm dealing with a girl who drives me crazy, you know. But I deal with it. It's okay. Good times and bad times. I think it's good that we all survived. But we were all split up. We didn't grow up together as a family. We were split up and we were moved to different homes. My sister, one of my sisters, after my mother died, I think she just was no longer, she felt like she wasn't good enough for anything anymore. She just wasn't any good. And so she went into drugs. She became a drug addict. My other sister, she's an alcoholic now. She's having a lot of problems. She gave her children up because she was an alcoholic, and she's having problems. One of my brothers, my younger brother, and I believe he was 9 months when my mother was killed. He is in prison. He's in prison.
Is everybody else pretty much productive?
Yeah, we're pretty much productive, yeah.
Something else is wrong. Yeah, everything is wrong.
This whole thing is wrong. We're working, trying to do something with ourselves. And if we're not, we have a family. We're not on welfare, most of us. We're not on welfare. So that's good.
Those children, the ones that have been successful, they probably did it on their own, finding other support systems that were willing to help them. But not this city. Not this town. You see, Miss Spelman may have gotten a welfare check. So she was nothing. I mean, she was considered, now we can wipe this family off the welfare rolls.
What did they do for us? Nothing. I think they felt sorry. They put our picture in the paper for one Christmas. It's like a little Christmas, we're doing this for the Spelman family. We're giving this, please. I don't think they did much. I can't remember them doing anything. The city of Newark, the police officers, the state troopers, they were my enemies. There was nothing they could say to me that would be right. And now I have cops as friends. I go out with cops, you know. But there was a time I didn't even like them.
Do you blame your neighbors there in the projects who started the riot?
No. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I don't know who I blame. I think I blame everybody who had a part of it or who was involved in it. I blame the city of Newark. for allowing such a thing to happen in Newark. I mean, why would such a thing happen in Newark?
The immediate problem was, of course, the cab driver that was beaten by the policeman. But what caused the riot was what caused the riot all over America. And that is, people were mad and they were angry. The contradictions were too clear at that point in America, and so there was an explosion. Now, right now, you probably have some of the same conditions, if not worse, but they're not presented to people in the form of glaring contradictions.
Check that beat, though, 1, 2, 3. Check out my head, 1, 2, 3.
Riots don't occur because of poverty anyway. Otherwise, it happened today, every day. I think what really remedied the situation here was that you had a black police director who was bright and had a lot of gumption and decided that he was going to institute all the procedures and guidelines that were already in the books, and anybody who violated those was going to be treated accordingly, punished, discharged, sent for psychiatric tests if they were what I call the meat eaters, the psychos that we had in the police department. There has been an amazing reduction of overuse of force. The anger between the police and the citizenry is no longer there, and it's vice versa. You know, I think police in the late '60s looked at most blacks and Puerto Ricans as animals. There's probably still a lot of them that do, but yet they don't manifest it as aggressively as they did then. So things have changed, and I think for the better.
805, we need someone to open a car with a baby in it at 2900 Street.
You're saying, do we respect the people? The good people, yes, we have a lot of respect for it. The ones that are, the undesirables, no, we don't have any respect for the undesirables.
Shootings.
Yeah, everything. Everything and anything.
You don't worry about getting hurt?
Well,
I guess you do deep down inside, but you don't let it come out to the front and let you worry about it all the time.
Bet your wives worry all the time.
Mine does. Mine doesn't even know I work in a radio car. She thinks I work in a hospital squad or whatever inside. Because I've got 3 small children, and especially going to this section of the city, she's very nervous.
And this
What's his
second
name?
girlfriend has been kicked out from the fire.
Yeah. James Jones, where's he live, on the 3rd floor?
Yes, he's only 9.
And go for tour? A lot of our jobs is handling family disputes, and sometimes they can be the absolute worst. Because it seems as though you try to intervene and then they both turn on you.
Just thought it would be a fun job. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. I've been out for about 14 years.
And I've been working for about 10 years.
Has it been what you expected?
Not really. I thought people would respect you more than they do.
Make a park for the people that are homeless. If you really want to clean up this city, make a place for the people that are homeless. They don't have to leave these shelters when they have kids. They don't have to leave when it's raining. You know?
You're right. You're absolutely right. That's a problem that the city should try to solve.
There's a better cooperation between the black community and the police department today than it was 20 years ago. And I think that it's been improving over the years. It's not perfect, but it's a dramatic improvement. We will not stand for brutality by any police officer in this department. That's something we will not stand for. And that's even verbal brutality.
In those days, there was no fear that there would be any reprimands if, in fact, they acted in a manner that was not civilized.
The things that happened pre-67 couldn't happen again today.
I remember those days I was part of the Young Lords, and on a couple of occasions I was threatened by a policeman with a revolver that he called his off-duty revolver. I mean, he did not take his official gun out, he just pointed it at me, and just threatened me with it, simply because I refused to move on when he wanted me to move on.
I can remember in many cases many people saying to me and other members of CORE that, you really better be careful criticizing the police because it's very, very dangerous. In that period of the 60s, there were very few blacks on the police department. And it made for I think, a very tense situation.
1987, what's the percentage of black officers?
I couldn't give you the exact percentage. Approximately maybe 20%. With the new hires we had.
That's not much different than 1967.
Not that much.
I think that is a problem. I think that is a problem.
Hey, Hector, that's in the mirror. You had to come up to the projects, huh?
We need people who live in the community to be policemen. But Newark has a record of having the cops shoot their guns less times than any other major American city. Well, I think that says something.
Here, take this guy.
In Newark, we do our part of it very well, just based on the statistics that we're doing. Over 25,000 arrests last year. And if you look at the whole criminal justice system in the state, and we only have 13,000 people in jail. And I made 25,000 arrests last year. We've reduced crime since we've been here. I know that because I've watched the statistics very closely on that.
Most people in this city still feel unsafe.
Well, see, we're talking about two different things, actual crime and fear of crime.
I go downtown only when I really need something.
I couldn't say I feel safe walking around there.
You better not walk downtown after 5 o'clock.
Go ahead, walk up that
You walk downtown at 5 o'clock, you're crazy, lady. Anybody, white, black, yellow, or green, don't make no color.
That's right.
Makes no difference. If you go downtown at Broad and Market Street after 5 o'clock, you're in trouble, lady. You better not have a pocketbook on you, because it will disappear.
They say Newark's getting better.
Who
they
says
say,
that?
yeah.
What?
That's what they say. Why don't they bring back the 200 cops that they laid off?
They say they're gonna get more
Why?
cops. When I see Mr.
That's why you can't get a cop today when you call for one.
When I see
they
James
don't call,
Sharp
they
or
don't
Gibson
bring back the
walk
cops.
around
What's
by
the sense?
themselves around Newark, then I'll start walking
It's
around
ridiculous.
too.
I know I'm
And he's
right.
black.
My nephew's a cop.
When I see him walking around by himself, then I'll start walking around too.
That's right.
There's more color downtown than you see of the whites. Much more. I would never travel after 5 o'clock downtown. Never.
Yet you can feel comfortable staying in this neighborhood.
Yeah. I have no regrets.
You're going to stay here?
No, I'm moving to senior citizen in Verona.
I can't get out of Newark. I would love to get out of Newark. I can't get out of Newark. I got two sisters. Don't have enough money to go pay a big rents.
You gotta get out. Every day, people get out. They go out of town, Belleville, Natalie, Tommy, Addison, East Newark. That's what's in Newark.
I'm there 50 years, so I'm still gonna stay there, and nobody's chasing me out of Newark. Not yet, anyhow.
Italians in the North Ward still have a good, strong community, nice shops. Isn't this a good place to live?
I think so very much, sir. I feel safer and happier here. There's no two ways about it.
And yet you're angry at Newark.
Yeah. There's law and order for me, but not law and order for them.
We don't know them. They don't know us. We didn't know them 20 years ago, and 20 years later, we don't know each other. It's one city called Newark, okay? But right at this moment, there are many cities within the cities, there are many neighborhoods within the city. The life that we live here is it's a nice life, okay? And we pay a lot of taxes. I mean, we pay for this nice existence, but we're really not connected. The Eastwood is a community. The Ironbound Portuguese have developed a community there. They have, in terms of economics, have tremendous success. It doesn't reflect the rest of the city. It reflects that particular community. In the Central Ward, it's as desperate there as it was 20 years ago in some parts of the ward. And it's almost like us reading about South Africa.
Newark is too poor, really. There's no city, no major urban city in this country that carries the burden of so many poor people in the way that Newark does. And I think, in a way, the AIDS crisis in Newark and the way that it has beset this community is almost a logical extension of a city that is almost overwhelmed by the depth of poverty that exists in this city.
Newark represents one of the major problems about AIDS nationwide. And in fact, at this point, we estimate somewhere around 4 to 5% of the people in the city of Newark are infected. 93% of the AIDS cases in Newark so far are minorities. Even sadder than that, almost 9% of the cases in Newark are children. All of those children became infected and developed AIDS because their parents were at risk for virtually all of them because of drug abuse. So the problem in Newark is so intertwined with the problem of intravenous drug abuse that it's impossible to separate them.
I wouldn't say
dirty urines. What's the excuse for the dirty urines? You've been clean a year.
Well, I could say I have slipped, you know. I wouldn't say because I'm worried about the kids or whatever. I guess because I be around, you know, so many of my friends that do it, and I just fall weak, and I'm like, I'm worried, I'm upset, just get high and just don't worry about it.
Pan around here.
Right here.
See everyone
right,
in here?
Look around here.
Look at everyone in here.
This is where we
all people, you know, we all come here.
Right. We come here.
We be here every day. People think that this is all we want to do, but we can't get jobs. A lot of people, I can show you people in here right now that sleep out here at night because they can't afford no rent, no place. I'm serious.
Give my young men something to live for, except for today.
Right.
You only thing they can live for now is today, because that's all they see. They don't see it tomorrow. Give them a tomorrow. Give them something to live for.
You all have gotten along very well, but these indications that you refuse to discuss certain personal matters, and you rather take them to the street and use drugs, it's not going to help you any. It's only going to compound your personal matters. You know, people tend to use drugs to forget rather than to expand their knowledge. Because it's very early that we learn that we have no power over our own destiny. You know what I mean? So hopelessness set in. They learn hopelessness that sets in. I don't know why they put cocaine on the paper, in the paper all the time and on the news. If you look at the stats, it's heroin.
And it's still here in the Central Ward, a big problem.
And it's still here. It's still here. It's still our problem in the Central Ward. It makes big money for everybody. And the problem is worse due to the fact that the clientele is younger.
20 years ago in Newark, drugs were not as rampant as they are now. I don't think you could get drugs on every street corner, but you can today. People are not angry anymore. People are getting high. People are more or less becoming, accommodating themselves to the conditions in which they live. The interesting thing is that the anger that we had was directed toward the power structure. The anger that I see here is directed internally. It's internalized. I think that drugs has a lot to do with that.
The anger's been displaced, been misplaced. It's been funneled back within so that people take drugs and they fight each other.
Now don't get me mad now. I got a handicapped daughter, 17, 16 years old, can't walk. It's no home like down here for her to walk.
Don't talk to me.
Who stopped the whole in the bathroom?
Go downstairs.
Right? Why did you fix it?
Dang.
And I'm paying you down there $600 a month. How come you didn't fix it?
You ain't paying.
I got the seat. I'm paying you $650.
I didn't know you had that much spunk. You know what the problem is?
I got a lot of spunk.
Just like quiet, go downstairs.
Even more so than in the 60s, people don't know who they are. People don't have a sense of self-worth. They don't have a sense of being about something. And I think this country has stripped the beautiful people of that whole feeling. I think that's what it's all about. I think what has to be done is an education process. People have to be taught, maybe on a person-by-person basis, maybe in church, maybe in some of the community groups. They have to be taught really what the lessons have been that took place over the last 20 years.
It's not a perfect world because when I stepped out this morning to come to Great Abyssinian, a young lady was screaming on the corner. Someone had snatched her purse, and we made the chase and found the wallet, and he got away. It's not perfect when Michael Jackson, they're chasing him down the streets of Japan, and you know, he's singing that song, I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad. And you know, we don't have no problem with being bad. We need a song to say, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. You know.
Everybody come on and just throw your hands up high and wave from side to side. And if you're ready to run from like the white MC, let me hear you say, all right! All right!
I like Newark. I like what it's becoming. It's becoming beautiful. But I hate the fact that I have to look out my window and see guys on the corner. I hate that. It's selling drugs. And that's what black people are doing. I hate that. I hate to go downtown in Military Park and go through that park, which is a beautiful place, and see people drinking methadone or whatever you call that stuff. I don't even know what it is. That's what I hate about New York. I hate that the people really don't care about this city.
If you have two things, if you have employment and education for the youth, you won't have any problems. But the point is we have neither education nor employment. So what's the alternative?
Work out. Expression, Ogonde, Afro Blue can be, all of it meaning, essence, revelation, everything together, wailing in unison, a terrible wholeness. Yes, sir.
I was still talking essentially the same thing, self-determination, democracy. I'm still talking that.
In your days as a spiritual and political leader?
Well, look, I'm as spiritual and political as I ever was. Whether that constitutes leadership, you have to leave that to the people to decide. I mean, I was more of a black nationalist. I thought that all of black people's ills could be ascribed to white people. That's okay, bro.
I came and visited the Italians. I heard you.
When I get out of my car, I'm able to walk here among Italian Americans and others because I'm respected for what I stand for. I don't deviate. I haven't changed my platform. I haven't changed in any way. In spite that I was a senator, an assemblyman, a councilman, I stood Tony Imperiale.
Hey, Joe, what's up?
They see what I see. Newark has no future now because we have the wrong representation. They tell them that I'm a bad guy, I'm a vigilante.
Aren't you a vigilante?
On the right side of the law, yes, I am. I don't deny being a vigilante, but I don't hang nobody. If you check it, I arrest them. I bring them in. I hold them for police. If that's vigilantism and it makes it able for us to walk in our community, fine, call me a vigilante.
What about a racist?
No, racist I'm not. It's not just about skin, that indeed it is about classes, although most black people are, of course, working class and poor, but it is indeed about money and about wealthy versus non-wealthy, haves versus have-nots. I mean, as cliched as that sounds, that's what it's about.
Oklahoma City, Seattle, San Francisco, too. Hey, when this music, boom, that rockin' music, dance with a million styles, but it's still that same old backbeat rhythm that really, really drives a wild.
We're about to be assaulted by, I think, progress. You know, the whole displacement of thousands of people, I think, is happening now.
Rock and roll is to be there. Be there.
There's an excitement of new projects in Sydney, housing and jobs and beautification efforts that I believe is going to make Newark realize its potential as a leading city in New Jersey. Newark is on its way.
2, 3.
All right. We haven't reached that mountaintop yet, but we agree with Money Magazine, which looks at 300 cities in America, and said, guess what? No, Newark's not at the bottom. It's the 68th best city in America.
Not too long ago, we didn't rank in the top 3,000, and we were literally a dying city. Not only was there not low-income housing being replaced and people being displaced because we were literally tearing down buildings, but no one rebuilding. But we weren't building office buildings, we weren't building factories, we weren't building middle-class condominiums. In terms of the tenants for the office buildings and the commercial facilities I had to deal with, they all wanted out. The secretaries didn't want to stay in Newark after hours. They wanted to get out earlier. They wouldn't come in on weekends. There were a lot of excuses as opposed to real live problems. But a number of the law firms we lost, a lot of the accounting firms and small professional firms, resulted in these civil disturbances. And the problem really was pervasive for 7, 8, 9 years. It didn't, stop after that. The moving vans would put up on a Friday night to some building in downtown. By Monday, the law firm was gone. Now, of course, there's tremendous demand to come to Newark. And in fact, what really kicked off the rebuilding downtown was the PSE&G building.
We decided to stay in Newark when we needed a new corporate headquarters. We did look at other locations, though, outside of Newark. But we decided in 1977, our board of directors, to commit to the construction of a new corporate headquarters here in the downtown. After the riots in the early 70s, of course, there was significant apprehension, I think, throughout the business community about doing business in an environment that may be threatening to their business. There's nothing like that today. And I see nothing but positive, enthusiastic expressions of economic revitalization here in the city. It takes time for that to happen. It's taken time here. But that's the case now.
I think we've come a long way from researching municipal bankruptcy to a city that has a surplus of some $20 or $30 million every year.
The whole revitalization of Newark didn't happen in a vacuum. I mean, it happened because somebody said the economics of the city are right for us to go about and change things. If you look in Newark and you see how close it is to New York, you can get New York service for New Jersey prices. So somebody said, well, hey, we ought to be here. I've always said that Newark is on its way back, and the question is on its way back for who? So it's certainly a question that's on the topmost of everybody's mind. The word is gentrification.
For whom? Very much so. Newark for who? The same way do we say services and development for who? Is it for downtown? Or is it for the residents in the neighborhoods? I still think that a small percent of people will benefit from a good economic climate in Newark. For instance, when we talk about the renaissance of Newark, the largest concentration of Puerto Ricans and Hispanics is in the North Ward. That is one of the very hot speculative areas in terms of both private and individual people trying to move in, people who are considered, quote unquote, the gentry. And we're coming from so far behind in terms of our poverty that for Hispanics it's always worse for two reasons. One is language, and the other one tends to be the cultural isolation. I mean, most black Americans speak the language and understand the system.
It seems to me a squeeze out is going on. You know what I'm saying? They're squeezing the people out slowly but surely. The rent goes up every month.
I don't have no place to move. I don't know whether I'm moving out. I'm going to try to stay out as long as I can. My channel left to go, that's all.
I live right across the street and they're building all these expensive houses over there, $60,000. Where I'm gonna get $60,000 from? I'm on welfare as it is. They only give me $139 a month.
I have trouble finding a decent apartment. I have trouble because I don't make that much money, so I have to live in a certain area. I can't live where I want to live in Newark.
We can talk about the interest in real estate in Newark, the increase in values of real estate, the amount of development downtown, and take that as progress. That's progress if you think physical is progress, but if you're concerned about human development and where they stand in this whole development process, I don't believe it's progress. The community was founded after the summer disorders of 1967, and we did 2,300 units of housing. But the last 7 years, housing for people who are very limited in income has come to just about a standstill.
In the early 70s, we built over 7,000 units of subsidized housing in Newark. Probably, and I don't know if the statistics are correct, but I think it is, more subsidized housing than any other city for comparable size in the country.
There have been some new houses built, but more than 10,000 were torn down in that same period.
You think the poor are being chased out of Newark?
Oh, I think so, very definitely. Yeah, rents have gone up substantially without any really increase of affordable housing for people of limited income. The affordable housing they're talking about really requires a fairly significant salary compared to the median income for people in the Central Ward.
Pushing all the blacks to East Orange and Irvington, where they think there's a better life there, but it's not. It's even higher rent. You understand? And University Heights is going to get what they're going to get. And nobody can stop it. So what do we do? Go and tell the man, that's going to go in one ear and come out the other one.
I had just left New Community a few minutes ago out talking to Miss Jones, so she gave me an appointment to come back at 2:30 because I live right down here, and I need 2 bedrooms because my son and I don't have any place. We've been evicted from the apartment the last of this month.
Well, if not there, in the basement of City Hall is my best housing person, Evelyn Green.
Who's that?
No one's ever sat me down and said we've got too many black or too many poor people, and certainly not the last 2 black mayors I've worked under for 14 or 15 years. No, I don't think there's any conspiracy. I think the question of rebuilding a city has to deal with the overall mix of a city. Middle-income residents and middle-income taxpayers are part of any city, at least they should be, and we had lost a good part of our middle class.
The problem is I want to see Newark rebuilt, but I want to see it rebuilt for the people that live here. I don't want them to be replaced by a lot of, anonymous suburbanites and the yuppies and buppies who are coming in now, and I think the Central Ward is already lost to that.
Certainly, if one could envision the entire city being gentrified, then I think you could justifiably, argue that gentrification may be extreme and may hurt. But in a city that has the depth of poverty that Newark has, how can you really talk about gentrification at this point?
We have so many spectacular apartments, it's difficult to point out which one, but probably the penthouse would be the most spectacular. It was bought by a young woman, very dynamic, and she worked with our designer to make it her own space. It's a duplex apartment with a spiral staircase, 2 terraces, a north terrace and a south terrace. She has a jacuzzi in her master bedroom suite, huge living, dining space, and just very dynamic, tons of light. One person ran his own sound system through his walls, and he tied it into his VCR and television.
This is all in downtown Newark?
All in downtown Newark, that's right.
It says a lot of the doom and gloom types were wrong. It says that we're a city again. And I want to repeat that. We're a city again. We're not a place that happened to have a geographic accident 50 years ago. People will pay $300,000 for a condominium in downtown Newark.
I think all of the new buildings and the renovation of Newark is not for the blacks, first of all. I don't think it's for the blacks. Why would they renovate first? They think that we're comfortable living as we are. I think it's to make someone else comfortable. I don't think that them tearing down the projects is for the blacks, to make them, to have them live in a better place. I don't think that's all for the blacks. I think it's for something else,
We at the Public Housing Authority cannot put people into buildings that are just not fit for human habitation. We have determined that these projects have outlived their usefulness, and we are now in the process of demolishing the high-rises, and we're replacing them with low-rise townhouses for large families.
These high-rise buildings, we don't need them. All it's here is crime, drugs. We don't need this.
You were glad to see them go?
Yeah. And I want to see more go, till there's none. Then I would like to have some place for me and my children to live, decent, like a townhouse.
I was glad to see it go. Very glad.
because I was thinking that I was going to get a townhouse.
They brought back to the people the old 40 acres and a mule stuff, you know what I mean? Now the thing is we give you a townhouse. They're not going to give all these people a townhouse.
When the townhouse was being given, I think by right, I was entitled to one. And they said family, large families with small children. So
why do you think you didn't get it?
I don't know. I'm afraid to even ask them.
I would like to live in a large home with a lot of acreage, etc. It's simply not available. I can't afford to do that. We at the Public Housing Authority cannot afford to build sufficient numbers of townhouses for everybody.
I would love to see my grandchildren raised in a townhouse. Out of this neighborhood, from around the drugs and the killings. I'm raising 4 grandchildren plus my son. How many grandchildren I have? I can't count it. Close to 24. Ooh.
Miss Hutchins is Jasmine's grandmother. She's Jasmine's father's mother. Yeah.
Your daughter's grandmother?
Mm-hmm. She lives down in the Scudder Homes, which is just terrible. It's really terrible.
Closes really fast. It's hard to.
It's cloudy.
Maybe you gotta press another switch.
How about this elevator?
Is it moving? I don't know anything about the elevator because I never take it hardly.
Take the stairs.
You just walk up the stairs all the time.
Why that?
Because would you take this elevator? See, I don't even know if it's stopping. Is it stopping? But I visit her. I go and visit her and I, take her things and she gives me things, typical grandmother, She's a nice lady.
For not to be my daughter, she took a lot of that after me. That's right. Now, Chris and I could build Newark if we could get enough stuff, because we work night and day. We're very hard worker. Very smart girl.
During the day, I work in the loan department. I'm secretary, administrative assistant, whatever you're going to call it. I introduce people to loans. That's what I do at the bank. At night, I work for a cable company. I'm a collector. I go from door to door and say, give me your money, okay? So, listen, you haven't paid your bill. I want the money. Most of the time, I get the money. My boss asked me the other day, he said, Crystal, why do you work 2 jobs when you run from this place to... I said, because you don't pay me any money. I mean, what do you expect me to do? If I was making enough money on one job, do you think I would have 2? Sure.
She's a good worker. She does statistical reports. She takes care of customer service calls. Back in '67, most of the black people then were backroom people in our bookkeeping department. We had a few tellers that were black.
I think the reason that most of the people are black in banking now on my level, because there's not, in my bank, there's no blacks on a higher management level, no vice presidents, no presidents, nothing like that. We're just either clerical or whatever, But I think because of the wages.
Do you think that you could have gotten any job at all there 20 years ago?
Oh, no way. More or less I'm on the platform. I mean, when you walk in the door, you see my face. You couldn't have gotten that 20 years ago. No way.
Every gain of that kind was made with an enormous amount of struggle and effort. And it's hard for young people to realize how much things have changed. We even picketed White Castle on Elizabeth Avenue because White Castle, that sold almost all of its hamburgers at that site, would not hire black waitresses. If you tell a young person that today, it's hard for them to imagine going into a White Castle on Elizabeth Avenue and not
seeing
anyone white there, right? Exactly.
PSE&G has a very aggressive affirmative action program. A great number of our employees are right from this immediate area, and that's logical. And quite frankly, that's one of the benefits of having a headquarters such as ours in Newark, is the accessibility to not only the Newark labor pool, but the immediate municipality's labor pool.
It is true that you don't normally find many of these white-collar firms necessarily looking for resident employment as a goal per se, but it's not true when you look at their actual employment statistics that there isn't black, Hispanic, and indeed a great deal of female employment generated by our downtown occupants.
When you go out and you're in a job, you're looking for a job, and you go to these new companies, you're not getting hired. As a matter of fact, I went on an interview. I was sent by a personnel agency right downtown Newark. They sent me over to the Gateway building, and I didn't get it. Now, I can't say that I was qualified for the job, so I can't say they didn't hire me because I was black, but I didn't get the job. I thought I was qualified, but I wouldn't have went, but I didn't get the job.
There are employers in Newark who cannot get positions filled. It's not a question of do I find qualified, because that's a relative word. They're willing to train, etc. They can't fill all their positions in some cases. The problem, of course, is more than just rebuilding a city.
Attention all classroom teachers.
We have a massive problem from the younger years of education on up.
Newark is coming back, a boom, renaissance, construction. We have a civil construction program, civil engineering, goes begging for students. Because by and large, most of these programs need a strong basic background in English and math. The reality is, blacks and Hispanics are not in those corporations. If education is not our priority, then basically, even when the doors are opened, we will have nobody to take those jobs.
It's very, very sad, but in this world today, and if you don't have basic skills, there's nothing for you to do. And the Newark Board of Education deserves blame because its focus much too often is really not on the problems of children and the problems of education.
Much of the documentation down to Together We'll Educate Our Children, that's all stuff that's been in the files for 2 years that I've watched come across the table.
It seems to be just a never-ending contest about position and power and personal advantage and patronage allocation and contract distribution and politics.
Education certainly has not gotten better. I think it has gotten worse. It's unfortunate because with all the changes that have taken place since 67, 68, education has not been one of the primary areas for a major change.
The children, not enough of them are being prepared for a life in a society. That's the crime.
How many Italians do you know in the North Ward whose children go to public schools?
Italian families or children are not going to the Newark schools. As simple as that, they're not. You find that with middle-class black families and Puerto Rican families doing the same thing. So it's not color.
The schools are that bad?
The schools are, most of the schools are that bad, yes.
There's too many students in one class, and the teachers can't. Half the teachers don't even know what's going on in the classroom. Next year, I was planning to send them to a private school.
That's expensive.
I know it's expensive, but I work 2 jobs, and sometimes you have to make sacrifices for your children.
Both of my children went to Newark schools for a while, and then we took them out and sent them to private school.
You weren't satisfied for your kids?
Oh, absolutely. We didn't feel that our kids would get a fair shot.
How much we earned all together? $60. Where's that?
Certainly for Essex County College, the data clearly shows that 95-96% of our students have needed one form of remediation for the past 10 years, and there has been no change.
Someone's giving them a high school diploma.
Unfortunately, I think, yes, somebody is. And this is where I think the real rub comes in terms of what does a high school diploma mean? Because for those kids, for whom education is a means to maybe enjoying some of, the promises of America, unless that diploma means something, then their fate is basically worse than when they started, because we've presented them with false hopes.
I plan to go to New Brunswick College, Rutgers New Brunswick College, take up computer technician, and live in California.
Not Newark?
No.
Where do you want to live?
In a middle class neighborhood.
Not Newark?
Not Newark.
Yes, I live down south somewhere.
Not Newark?
Not in Newark.
Why?
I don't like the neighborhoods.
It's all right. But if I make it further, I'll go.
Out of Newark.
I stay in Newark. I stay in Newark.
I stay in Newark because Newark is going through like a renaissance. It's changing. They're trying to make it better. So I'll stay here.